Good afternoon. My name is Christine Anderson. I am the Public Affairs and Communications Manager for the Texas Real Estate Commission and the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. Just a couple of quick housekeeping messages before we get started today. While you're on the call, please remember that your camera is on. So if you do not want to be on camera, please go ahead and turn off that camera. You can do so using the navigation bar. If you hover over the images, it should show up. There's a small camera. You can click that and turn it off. Also, please keep in mind that there are lots of other people on the call, so we want to keep everyone muted. If you're not asking a question, that way then we don't have too much background noise. And as a friendly reminder, we are recording today's session to be shared at a later date. So, so just as an FYI, as well as, again, you're on camera. So smile, but we're okay. Hold on, a couple of more people joining. So I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to get to join us and learn a little bit more about licensing and inactive status, as well as get your questions answered. We have a very special guest with us this afternoon. Our Director of Licensing, Denise Sample, is with us today. Denise has been with the agency a long time. Denise, I'm sorry if I can't remember. I think it's 5 to 7 years, something?
Since 2012.
Yes. So she is very well versed and an expert in her field, and we're very lucky to have her join us today. So I shared in the chat box over for just in case you're not familiar, there is a chat feature on this. I shared a link to today's article that we're talking about, just in case you want to refer to it. It's posted on our homepage as well, and it's called "What is the Difference Between Inactive and Expired?" For today's primary conversation. Hold on, I'm getting some feedback again. Again, just a reminder: keep yourself on mute if you are not talking, so that we don't get feedback from anyone. Sorry about that. So you can refer to that article. I shared the link to it. If anyone has any questions throughout the session, please feel free to go ahead and ask those questions. You can do it in 3 different ways. Raise your hand. There's a little hand raise feature, a little hand on your option bar, or you can put your question in the chat box. And you can either verbally ask the question or type it into the chat box. I guess that's 2. If we can do everyone a favor and try to keep any side conversations to a minimum in the chat box, that way then everyone can benefit from the conversations happening on the video. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and roll this over to Denise. Thank you again so much, Denise, for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to help us out.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Christine, for getting us started. I'm Denise Sample, and I'm the Director of Licensing for TREC and the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. And as I said earlier, I've been with the agency since 2012, and I have previous experience at a different licensing agency for the state as well. So licensing is kind of what I do. So the article that Christine was referencing, we wrote that because we wanted to address a common question that we were seeing, which is, what is an inactive renewal, and what does that mean, and what does it mean when my license is expired? So 83% actually of real estate license holders are active. They don't even have to go down this road or ask this question. So it's a small percentage of license holders that renew on inactive status. So inactive status, the biggest thing to keep in mind is you still have a valid license. It's got a future expiration date, so it is considered current, but inactive means you cannot engage in real estate services. So you can't do the work that the license authorizes you to do. The upside for that inactive status is that to renew that license in inactive status, you don't have to complete continuing education every 2 years. So if you kind of are taking a break from performing real estate services, that's an option for you to keep that license. You don't have to take CE, and you keep a current license so that when you decide to get back in, you would need to take, a round of continuing education. And, if you're a sales agent, get a broker to sponsor you. If you're a broker, you would just request active status and you'd be right back in the field. One other thing to keep in mind is that an expired license is when your license is expired. So whether it was inactive or active, that expiration date for that license is now in the past. So now there's a different set of steps that you would have to take to come back to an active status and be able to engage in services again. The other benefit for the inactive status is that if your license is maintained current, you never are subject to any changes to the requirements. So for example, sales agent license, if a change is made down the road to require an additional course or a different number of hours to obtain it, you would not be subject to those because you're maintaining a license that you're renewing, whether active or inactive. So you're not subject to that. You would be subject to any new requirements if you let that license expire. So we try to urge people who are saying, I really don't have time to take the continuing education. I really can't, afford the classes, or I'm not really doing this work anymore. We strongly recommend those license holders set your license status to inactive and renew, because once your license is expired and certain deadlines come with how long a license is expired, you're now looking at a bigger challenge to get back to being licensed again. So hopefully that article did kind of help address any of those questions. Are there any questions so far about what was covered in those different statuses?
We do have a hand raised here, but let me make sure. So you said 83% of our license holders are active. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when you're active, you can provide, so basic review. When you're active, you can provide real estate services. When you are inactive or when you are expired, you cannot provide real estate services.
That's correct.
Correct. And when you are expired versus when you are inactive, when you are expired, you need to, you may be subject, if you want to return to having your license, to new requirements. Let's say the legislature changes the requirements to get a license and you've been expired. Is it longer than a certain amount of time? Like, let's say you let your license expire only for, 2 months versus 5 years. Is there a difference there, Denise?
Yes, that's a great question. You can late renew. You have the option to renew your license up to 6 months beyond the expiration date. A license that's been expired for more than 6 months cannot be renewed.
Okay. And so a license that's been expired for more than 6 months, that means basically you let your license expire, you forgot about it for a year, you're not selling real estate. You decide 2 years down the road, I'm going to go back to getting my license. The legislature now has changed the requirements to become a license holder. You're now subject to taking any new requirements that might now be in place, right? So that's kind of the benefit of keeping your license inactive, is you keep paying your renewal fee and you won't be subject to that, but you don't have to pay, let's say, the CE courses like you mentioned, right?
Right. And you touched on another important deadline. Once a license has been expired more than 6 months, but less than 2 years, there is an option to do what's called a reinstatement of that license. So a reinstatement of the license allows you to come back and get the license again with just completing, the required CE at the time. So it's currently 18 hours. And you don't have to retest, you don't have to sit for the exam again, or be subject to any requirements that are now, applied to new license applicants. But once a license has been expired for more than 2 years, reinstatement is no longer an option. So at that point, you're applying again as a brand new license holder. You're subject to whatever courses are required for new applicants, and you would have to take the exam again at that point.
Okay, Julie Brady, looks like we have a question, a hand raised. Julie, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Thank you. I don't have any video, so I don't know. I can't see myself or anybody, but my situation is my license expired about 14 years ago. I have just taken all the classes and I passed the exam about 3 weeks ago. I've had 3 conversations with TREC, and on the website, it says for renewals, you don't have to be re-fingerprinted, but Twice TREC has told me that my fingerprints landed in your system on July 14th. And I said, well, I haven't had my fingerprints done since 2004. And so the last time I talked to them, which was a week ago this past Monday, they put me on hold and talked to leadership and came back and said, no, you do need to be re-fingerprinted. So I've lost about a month now because, of course, it took 2 weeks to get my fingerprints, which I'm doing tomorrow. And then my understanding is the background check will start after I get re-fingerprinted tomorrow. So I'm just a little confused about it. Do I really need to be re-fingerprinted with an expired license?
Without looking at your specific file, and I'd like to have a conversation with you after this event is over, because without looking at your specific file, I won't be able to tell that just by what you described. But you shouldn't have to be fingerprinted again. There might be an additional form you need to complete. An FBI wrap-back form. There could be something else that's requiring some additional steps to get that background check initiated again on what you'd be considered a returning application because you held a license previously. So we can talk offline after this meeting, and I'll provide you with my contact information if that's all right with you.
I had to mute you because there was some feedback, but if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself again, sorry, I just, there was some feedback. So not you, Denise, the person asking the question.
Denise, can I send you a private chat with my phone number?
Sure. Let me, I don't know if we can privately chat. I haven't done that on Teams with anyone outside of the organization.
I don't think you can. Let's go ahead and, Denise, if you want to go ahead and share your email address with the crowd here. We always provide those towards the end of these so that you guys can contact us with any additional questions. So I think that's probably a prime opportunity. You can send an email to Denise and then get your questions answered.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Denise, your email address is
it's in the chat window, I believe.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Denise. Okay, looks like we had some chat questions as well. So we're gonna I'm gonna kick it over there. I have Sheila Ward. If we go inactive, can we still do our SAE, or do we wait to do that after returning to active status? And can we still refer business to an active agent and get a referral fee? Ooh, that's multi-layered there.
That is definitely multi-layered. Let me address the first part of your question. SAE, or Sales Agent Apprentice Education, is required by statute, and it is, it spells out that you've got to have a total of 270 qualifying course hours prior to your first renewal as a sales agent. The statute also specifically says that this requirement cannot be deferred. So a sales agent renewing for the first time cannot pay that $200 CE deferral fee to put it off for 60 days. It also is required whether you're trying to renew active or inactive for the first time. So that SAE is an exception to the majority of the renewals, in that there is no getting around the additional qualifying hour requirement in order to renew. Hopefully that answered Sheila's question.
We can still do the SAE if we're inactive.
Oh, of course, you can do it anytime. You can take it while you're expired and waiting to come back.
Great.
Okay, hold on. Admitting some people into the meeting. Okay, let's go back to
what I can't address. Sorry, Christine, just to go back to that multi-layer question.
I was going to say, so her next question was about referral business.
Yeah, and that's not something I'm equipped to answer as far as scope of work. That is more of an enforcement question. I think I see a hand raised for someone who might be able to answer that.
We do happen to have one of our our Deputy General Counsel, Mark Moore, on the call. But Sheila, as in addition, I see you also were asking about some fees and the difference between inactive and referral status. And I want to make sure it's clear that the Real Estate Commission does not have any other status other than active, inactive, or expired. Referral status, I believe, is referring to something that maybe an association, the private entity, has something to do with. I would think maybe that's a good place to check with your association about there may be something to do with like some sort of membership as far as a referral membership or something like that, that you may want to check with them about that. So, but Mark Moore, I believe you're on the call, and he might be better equipped to answer the question about referring business when you're active or inactive.
Yes, unless you hold an active license, you can't engage in any real estate brokerage activities, and that includes a referral fee.
That is succinct. Thank you so much, Mark.
Yes,
Thanks, Mark.
We always appreciate having an attorney here to back us up. Okay, so Sheila, if you have an additional question, please by all means raise your hand or ask the question. I'm happy to keep the conversation going. I'm going to move on to the next one. Pamela asked, what's the cost to keep an inactive license or the renewal fee? I did share, we do have a fee schedule on our website that's maintained by our staff that has all of the fees. But Denise, is there a difference in the cost between an inactive license and an active license?
There's no difference in the renewal fees, whether the license is active or inactive.
So really what the benefit there cost-wise would be, I don't have to pay for the CE every 2 years.
That's correct.
Right, so you're still paying, and forgive me, I think I know the fee, but is it, what is the renewal fee for a real estate agent? Not to put you on the spot, it's in the spread, it's not very costly. I think it's like $150 or $180.
The broker,
143, sorry.
Yeah, the broker renewal is $217, and the sales renewal, of course, I don't know it off the top of my head.
I think it's $143. I'm so sorry, I did not mean to put you on the spot. So it's not, and that's for 2 years is that fee. So really all you're having to pay for is the licensing fee, but you're not having to pay for all of your CE. So that's kind of the benefit of doing this. Jennifer asked about the renewal fee. How long can you keep your license on inactive status? Juan is asking. Denise, how long can you?
That is a question we get often. You can keep your license on inactive status indefinitely, as long as you keep renewing. You know, we have no problem with, and we see some licenses that get issued and they're issued inactive from the onset, and we never see that license go to active status. So there is no limitation to how long you can keep a license on inactive status. The key is renewing it.
Yes, so the key is that even if you get your license, so sometimes I know I've gotten some calls before where it's somebody let their license go inactive, but they're not maintaining their contact information with us. So they're not notified when their license is going to expire, right? Because it still can expire even if you're inactive. And so they don't keep track of that. And that's when they expire. And then they become subject to the fees because they just forget. So that's something key, right, Denise? They still have to maintain that contact information with us.
Yeah, and we communicate with the license holders primarily by email. We've got over 205,000 license holders licenses issued by TREC. So email is the way that we communicate, and pretty often with our license holders. So keeping that email address up to date is very crucial. Yeah.
As reminders go out that way, any communications on status change or anything like that are going to be sent out that way. And they maintain, a license holder, when they're renewing their license, they're maintaining their contact information online, correct? It's pretty easy to maintain that.
Yeah, you're asked to confirm your contact information, mailing address, email address, phone number with any online transaction that you conduct online. And anytime there's a change, you can go in and maintain the contact information outside of a renewal.
That's great. Okay, so I have a question from Ariel. It says, if going from inactive to active, does the amount of required CE change depending on how long you've been inactive? or does that not change no matter how long you've been inactive?
So that question really depends on when you're requesting to come back to active status. So a few years ago, the CE requirements were 15 hours with a couple of non-elective courses. Currently, it's 18 hours with 2 non-elective courses. So if you were to request active status today, you'll need to complete the CE that's required today.
And I think the reason why I ask, I'm part of Van Education Center, a school or provider. We get lots of students asking us that. I know in a couple other states that we're in, after 2 or 3 cycles of inactivity, it actually goes up in CE requirements.
Yeah.
But so technically, they could be inactive for 20 years and still have to just complete whatever's currently required. If it didn't change from 18 credit hours, they would still just be 18 hours no matter what, relatively
Correct.
speaking.
On the real estate side, yes.
Okay.
There's a scenario with appraisers where it's a little bit different,
Yeah.
but it's such a small percentage of those applicants. But for the volume, the bulk of the license holders that we're talking about, it's just the one round, I guess you could call it, of CE that's required to return to active.
And is that similar with expired, or do you recommend? We frequently get students asking us. We always refer them back to the commission. But is there a way for us to, if looking up how long they've been expired, to go, you're going to need 18 hours and it's going to be X, Y, and Z, or is it just best to continue pushing them back to you guys for confirmation?
Well, if they're expired and still renewable, so still no more than 6 months past the license expiration date, the CE requirements are still going to be the same as if, when you're returning to active from inactive. It's whatever CE is required at the time. So once we start getting into a license that's been expired beyond 2 years, now you're looking at pre-license education. But for renewal on a TREC license, it's whatever one round of CE, whatever those hours are at the time, that's what's required, whether you're late renewing or reinstating or renewing inactive or active.
But for outside 2 years, we should probably just push them back to you to double check.
Yeah, because at that point, now we're doing an evaluation on an initial application and comparing it to what's required by statute for new licenses. Yeah.
That's wonderful. We just want to make sure that we can confidently say that to our students, as we frequently get them thinking we have all the answers, and I'm like, no, sometimes the commission is much better. So
yeah, that's
Denise,
fine. We also welcome those questions from you as a provider as well, because we know you're interacting with a lot of times with students who haven't applied with us yet and haven't maybe interacted with us yet. So we welcome those questions from providers as well.
Thank you.
And Denise, sorry. So I have another question here from Pamela, who asks, to keep active, you have to have your license with a broker, right?
Yes, one of the requirements for a sales agent to have an active license is to be sponsored by an active Texas broker.
Okay. And I have a question from Gina. She says, thanks for taking the time to answer my question. You mentioned after SAE and retaining my license with the fee, should I expect a fee to establish a broker and salesperson relationship? I want to go from inactive to active.
That's great timing, because on January 2nd, we eliminated the fee required to establish sponsorship with a broker online. Additionally, we also removed the fee for a broker to submit a request for or an invitation for sponsorship to a sales agent online. So that can all now be done at no cost to a license holder.
Something else I wanted to point out is, so we've had a couple of questions about people that are expired and then want to come back. So not inactive, but they are expired and they want to get a license. Does the CE that they took, let's say they did expire and it has been 5 years, does the CE that they took for the last time they had an active license ever expire?
Can you repeat that question? I'm not sure.
So let's say the license has expired, but the CE that they took, principles 1 and 2, let's say it's still required to get a license, 5 years down the road. Does that principles 1 and 2 ever expire?
Okay, so the qualifying education that they took.
Yes.
No, it doesn't expire. If we've got it in our records, we will evaluate that with that initial application when that former license holder submits an application to return and to get licensed again, we'll take a look at the content requirements in place for the course that was taken in case those content requirements have changed. But we have been able to, in the past, award qualifying credit for some of the hours, if not all of them, for someone who is licensed, and we still have record of them obtaining or completing the required qualifying education at that time.
Right. So as long as principles 1 and 2 have not changed too significantly to mean something completely different, and we can see that it's substantially the same, we can still give credit for principles 1 and 2 when they reapply after being expired.
Correct. And
Okay.
we can do that based on it being entered into our system of record. We don't require them to go locate those certificates and resend them.
Now, what if somebody, I have had in the past, somebody that they've been expired since 1983, and they know they took principles 1 and 2 back in 1983, and if they still have their certificates and a proof that they took the course, would we be able to accept that?
If they have the certificates, absolutely. In most of those cases, with someone who held a license that far back, we generally can look at our resources for what the requirements were at the time and grant, certain credit in cases where there's nothing in our records anymore because of the age of the record, and the license holder or the applicant no longer has these certificates. We can make an evaluation based on what would have been required at the time.
But the long story short is maybe staying inactive is probably a little bit easier so that you don't have to maintain your records for 35 years.
Yes, the simplest solution is to continue renewing the license, whether active or inactive. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question from Scott Hilton, who says, question on CE, when going to active, does that satisfy the required CE for an upcoming renewal when going active?
That's an excellent question. That is going to depend on how far away we are from the next renewal cycle and how long that license has been inactive. So if a license holder is requesting active status from inactive and they've just renewed 6 months ago, that will likely that's not going to be counted for an upcoming renewal. But if that license holder, for whatever reason, is requesting active status 90 days or less ahead of their next renewal period or upcoming expiration date, in that case, they are going to be able to count that education for renewal and to activate, because we're not going to go back and retroactively give them an active license. It's active from when the requirements are met and we set the license to active. So that's the only scenario where it would be counted for both.
Okay. Wow. That I learned something just then. Great question, Scott. Thank you for asking it. If you have a follow-up, let us know. So Pamela has a question. How do I find what CE courses I need to take? Is it on the TREC website? I've been inactive since March of 2020. Denise, is it on the website?
So we did roll out here recently the renewal education information page. And we've been rolling that out in phases because, as we've already covered so far, CE and what's required is not it's not very cut and dry. It can get complicated depending on different scenarios. So currently, for sales agents and brokers who are within 90 days of their expiration date, they can do a search for their license on our website. And on the search results, there will be a link that says renewal education information. Clicking on that link takes them to a page that will show how many hours you've completed that count towards the upcoming renewal, whether or not you've met the non-elective course requirements, and your expiration date and kind of what your deadline is and what the options are. Our next phase that we're rolling out with that page is to capture all the license holders who pay a deferral fee to defer their CE requirements for 60 days and having that page still display for them. Their renewal is now approved. They've got a 2022 license expiration date. Well, that page goes away because the renewal is no longer open. So the next phase is to display that information for those who've paid for the CE deferral, so they know how much closer they're getting to meeting the requirements as they approach the end of that deferral period. And then the last rollout of that will be for all license holders at any time to display what CE is required, whether or not, if they're 18 months away from renewal or 3 weeks away. So For now, you can look yourself up and see the list of all the courses that you've completed that we have on record. It won't really do that calculation for you unless you have an open renewal at this time, but you can always reach out to us by email or phone if you know any of that is in question.
And just so that I can help out a couple of people if they have a question about where to find it, you're going to license holder lookup. That is available on almost every page of our website. You can put in your own information. If you're within 90 days, like Denise just said, it should show up. And I shared a screenshot of just a license holder that I looked up really quickly that is within that 90 days so that you can see the little button that we're talking about. And it says view renewal education information. It's a red hyperlink on that page. You would click on it and it would take you to the next page that would then show all of their all of that person's renewal education information. So I just shared that so that you could find it a little bit easier, not because I was trying to highlight that license holder's information. And it is public, right, Denise, for everyone that likes. So a broker, for example, or an association executive that wants to look up information, it's not like they have to log in to do something. They can see this on the website on the homepage, right?
That's correct. It's public facing. So as long as you are able to identify which license holder you're wanting to look up, either by their number or name, you know, obviously search for John Smith is going to overwhelm. You'll need to narrow it down, but it is public facing information once you're on the search results.
Yeah, I would think that's pretty handy information, especially like we have a provider on here and stuff. They can look that up and help them guide them to the courses that they need to take. So I have an additional question here from Cindy. She says, coming from an association, it's a comment, from an association perspective, it would be helpful if TREC would display a status date on your website. We can see when a license becomes active, when it expires, but not when it changes from active to inactive. Any plans on adding that in the future?
You know, we hadn't received such a request before, so that's good to know that would be helpful.
Yeah.
To you. One of the, I can see kind of a limitation with the system as far as displaying that with accuracy. We want to make sure that anything we display on the website is accurate and clear to understand. So, you know, currently active and inactive license histories and sponsorship histories are done manually by staff actually performing the research in the system to confirm that information. So that might be why we have not quite rolled out status date, but that's definitely something that we'll look into as a possibility of adding if that is helpful to you.
Yeah, especially I would think that maybe I believe my rusty knowledge of association membership information, having an inactive license means you no longer can be a member of the association, and that may be helpful for example, that person was an association executive and looking up to confirm whether or not that person can be a member. So I would think that's something that we can look into. Denise is the right person to ask that question of. So, all right, moving on to the next question. Sonia says, do all sales license holders have to complete 18 hours of CE now? I've had an active license since 1988, and it used to take 15 hours of CE, but it has been 18 at the last few renewals. So yeah, I think she's asking about the increase in education.
I need to look up exactly when that changed. I want to say 2015, but I'm not entirely sure of the effective date of the rule change that increased the total number of CE hours from 15 to 18. Because that was also around the time that the non-elective courses also increased from 3-hour courses to 4-hour courses. So it's been several renewal cycles now. You likely have completed 2 renewals under those new requirements.
And to answer the question, yes, everyone needs to take 18 hours.
Yes.
There's a very small window of people that are have a CE exemption, but that is a very small few people, and most likely not you. You have to take CE 18 hours every time. Okay. I now live in Corpus. Do you recommend where to take CE courses? Pamela asks.
We don't recommend providers. You are welcome to review the list of providers that are on our website. You can sort by qualifying providers or continuing education. and perform a search and find one that looks to have offerings that appeal to you. But no, we don't recommend any specific providers.
And our search tool has really been enhanced over the last year or so. It's really helpful. You can search by location and type of course, and it's really great. So I highly recommend you use that. Because they're license holders of ours, Pamela, we can't make a recommendation like that. We don't want to show any sort of favoritism towards a certain license holder. So, but yes, you can. A lot of the times we get that question even on social media, and the easy answer is to ask a friend, ask your broker, ask somebody else in the industry that you know is doing well, and ask them where they're getting their education from. So Sheila Ward asks, can we make our address private from the public?
We do have a form that you can request that for, if you've got specific reasons why you need your information to not be displayed publicly, you can fill out that form. It does have to go through an approval process from our general counsel's office. And then at that point, depending on the decision and the circumstances, then yes, we can proceed with suppressing your address information from displaying online. So if you would like, you can send an email to our main email address for the agency. That's information@trec.texas.gov. And we can move forward with a request of getting that form to you and kind of going over the specific policy.
And is there, I'm sorry, Denise, I was reading somebody else's comment, wanted to make sure, did you cover, are there any requirements of like a reason why somebody would need to have that?
Well, a lot of the reasons that.
One second, lots of feedback there, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of the reasons we see are, if a license holder has a restraining order and there's a personal safety concern, that could be a reason that someone submits it. It's not the only reason, but those do get reviewed by our general counsel for approval, because we are, we're a state regulatory agency, and under, the Public Information Act, most of the information that we retain is required to be disclosed, under specific circumstances. And so a request to suppress that information from being displayed online, it's got to go through the process that we've established by policy.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Denise. Okay. Deborah Barker asks, are there any limitations on how early we can start or complete our SAE?
That is a very good question. The only limitation is if you've paid to defer your CE for 60 days and already processed your renewal, you could run into a scenario where you've taken it too early. But if you are renewing timely and completing your CE timely every 2 years, you can take it, if your license expires July 31st of 2020, you can start taking your next round of CE on August 1st. Yeah, and we do encourage you to take it early, because inevitably, something could come up and circumstances could change that might prevent you from completing it timely. It's always good, and we do see those license holders out there that start taking it, within 2 weeks after their previous license expiration date. So, kudos.
So you're saying procrastination is not a good idea.
It can lead to maybe some having to pay a deferral fee, scrambling a little bit to sign up for classes. So we do strongly encourage, if you can, don't wait, but you can take it as soon after your last expiration date as possible. Great. If you haven't deferred.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Denise. Okay. So Sonia was just recommending a provider to another person in the chat. And then Amber Kennedy, isn't it only the office or business address showing on the TREC website? I think that's up to what license, correct?
Well, for an active sales agent, we are by default going to display the business address of their sponsoring broker, whether that's a business entity broker or an individual broker. It's an inactive sales agent where what is displayed by default is the mailing address that's on file, because then there is no sponsoring broker if that license holder is inactive. So we will be displaying what's on file as a mailing address for the sales agent.
Okay,
But
so if you don't have a sponsor,
it'll be your broker.
Okay, so if you don't have a sponsor and you are inactive, then your address may be shown on the website.
Mhm.
Okay, and some people I know have had concerns about that and have told me I went and got a PO box, or I've gotten, you know, a different type of address to not have my home address showing, and they use it for business purposes anyway. Not that I'm recommending that, I'm just saying I've heard people think of it that way too, just for their own business practices. I am not a lawyer. Let me make sure that I tell everyone.
No, I mean, you bring up a good point. A sales agent can use a PO box as their mailing address. Brokers have some additional requirements where we, by statute, I believe they're required to provide a business physical address or place of business address. And so that's what we'll display for an active sales agent. But yes, if a sales agent, you know, we're displaying the mailing address of an inactive sales agent. And so that could be a PO box, and that's not any violation of rule or any requirement.
That's great. Okay, so it looks like that's the end of the questions in the chat. So just in case you did not see in the chat, I've shared links to the provider search for Pamela, who was interested in asking or looking up providers. And the link to the article that we've mainly been discussing today is on our homepage. I've also shared it in the chat. Denise, what else? Do we have anything else you want to make sure we cover today?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I know sometimes CE deferral can be a little bit confusing as far as, you know, what the deadline is and what that means. But, you know, I don't want to get into it necessarily if no one has questions about it.
Yeah.
But
well,
I'm happy.
Well, okay. So there is a CE deferral. That is something that you pay when you want to. Basically, you get an extra 60 days right on your license if you pay the CE deferral, and you don't have to be inactive. If
you have not yet expired, that is an option there for you to pay the CE deferral fee with your renewal, and that does keep your license active and gives you 60 more days with an active license to meet the CE. At the end of that 60-day period, if you've not completed it, then we set you to inactive at that point. Okay. But the key is to get that renewal submitted prior to the license expiration date so that there isn't a gap. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So that gives you, oh, we have a question. Yay. I see you actually physically raising your hands, which I appreciate. So good.
I'm glad there's some interest in this. I didn't want to bring it up if, you know, no one was interested in it.
The deferral I'm okay with. It relates to that. Sometimes we have students that are the procrastinators that are finishing their CE right now, as it's July 31st in 2 days.
Never.
I know, it's shocking, but we do get questions sometimes, since I know we as providers have a week as far as CE to, you know, report it online. I've had students ask if we have yet to report it. So I've gotten their confirmation and I just haven't done it this afternoon, but they're going online to TREC and paying their renewal fee. If you don't see as TREC, if TREC doesn't see all of the CE completed or reported, does that detrimentally affect them, or do you guys give them until the 31st? Like, as long as it's in by the 31st, you guys don't pay or make them pay that additional fee? I just get students asking right at the last 4 to 5 days. I'm waiting till midnight to report every single CE on the 31st, and so I just want to make sure that I can either reassure them or scold them and tell them that they need to hurry up and get it done sooner, since we as providers have an entire week. I just know that they freak out when I say, well, I have a week to report this, so tisk, tisk, tisk. And I would just love to clarify that for them.
Yeah, and that's always a question that comes up, especially towards the end of the month. But we don't have records to your systems to know who has signed up for a course, who's completed a course. So it really is triggered by what is in our system. And that calculation is being made live of whether or not that $200 CE deferral fee is due or not. So, you know, our online services are also, they're available 24/7. So, you know, kudos to you for staying up late and posting education for those students. But, you know, that's one of those things that, you know, when we talk about not waiting till the last minute, you know, you never know what might happen in those last few days or hours leading up to that license expiration date. And you're right, providers have 10, I believe it's 10 days to transmit CE completion information to us electronically. You guys don't ever take that long. You know, from what I've seen, it's consistently posted very quickly after completion. But no, that the calculation of that fee is live. So if the course has not been posted to our record, you know, to that license holder's record, that fee is going to be added. So.
Great.
And Denise, oh, sorry, go ahead. I was going to ask Ariel a question related to yours.
I just want that helps me immensely just to have that confirmed and clarified, because students frequently become frustrated with us. But yes, we handle it with grace and let them know.
Yeah.
And so that fee, Denise, is not so it's non-refundable, correct? So people tend to, what happens is, and this is me, novice, you know, to licensing goddess that Denise is right now. So the question is this: if somebody pays the CE deferral fee, they are in their last 5 days, not all the CE has been posted, and they didn't realize that the CE deferral fee was on there, and they didn't check. What happens? Are they still charged the fee even though they technically did take the courses, but they haven't been published to our website?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to either pay that fee or not pay it.
Right.
It's included, you know, an itemized list of the fees. No, that's okay. It comes up. There's an itemized list of the different fee codes that make up that renewal fee that's presented kind of towards the end of the payment screen. So if the fee is there and it's paid, that means your education has not posted yet. So, you know, we are looking into, in the future, maybe getting a little bit more of a smart way of dealing with that, you know, to not penalize the ones who technically took it timely, but, you know, just by the time they were submitting their renewal, it was still not posted. It's something we are working towards, but right now, that fee is charged if it's not posted yet to our system. So there's,
right.
and the fees submitted are non-refundable.
Yeah, so it's important, I guess, is my point to that is make sure that if you're a provider or an association executive or a license holder, double check to make sure all of the CE has been applied to your account before you do your renewal, or double check to see if that fee's there. And if it is, you may want to check with us and see why. And I know sometimes if people are trying to pay for their renewal 5 days out and it's, you know, the provider just hasn't, they just come back in the next day and pay for their renewal and that fee's gone. So it's important to make sure that people are aware that that is there and it is calculated by only us having gotten and received and processed that CE. That's how we know, not that you've taken it.
And the CE posting system is available 24/7 for providers. I'm not encouraging all-nighters, but you know, at any point that information can be posted to our system. And then the online services system where license holders renew is also available, you know, 24/7. So if it's getting posted at 2 a.m., you can certainly log on at 3 a.m. and pay for your renewal.
And
it's purely hypothetical, right? No one's
no one's ever doing that. So I have one other question from Sheila. She says, can we defer the first renewal? I don't think I will need to do that, but just in case, I'd like to know.
No, that, you know, SAE is the Sales Agent Apprentice Education, and it is qualifying hours that are required before the first renewal of a sales agent license. And it is spelled out in statute that those requirements cannot be deferred. And it doesn't matter if you're active or inactive for your first sales agent renewal, you've got to complete those additional qualifying hours if you want to renew.
Okay, so active or inactive, it doesn't matter.
That's correct.
But can an SAE person after their first renewal switch to being inactive after they complete all of their education? They paid for their renewal, they've completed all their requirements, but then they want to switch to inactive. They can do that.
Certainly, and then they wouldn't be required to complete CE for any of their subsequent renewals. But for that first one, we cannot renew that license unless those additional qualifying hours have been completed.
So if they didn't complete their SAE requirements by their expiration date, what does that mean?
Well, at that point, they've got up to 6 months to late renew. You're not going to be able to perform real estate services, but you won't lose the license necessarily. You can complete the hours and have up to 6 months past your expiration date. You'll be subject to whatever late fees are added, depending on when you complete it and late renew. And then at that point, you'd have a license. You could get sponsored by a broker, and now you can get back out there and do the work.
Okay, so as I wrap up, I'll put last call for any other questions or comments, discussion points for Denise today. I'll do some housekeeping. I had somebody ask, how did I get this original message? We on the website have an area where you can sign up for communications from the agency. There's a little slider that comes up on the home screen that says sign up to stay in contact with us. You can sign up there and select all different types of communications from the agency. You can also do that on our news and articles page on our website. You can sign up there as well. In addition, we send out the newsletter, our monthly newsletter, to every one of our license holders. Once a month, that'll have all of our all of the articles. It's kind of a review of everything that we have in there. And so the notice about this may have been in there. We also have a Facebook and Twitter pages. So if you want to like or follow us on there, we regularly update and post events like this on those pages as well. In addition, this is being recorded, so I will be posting this recording on our YouTube channel as well. So you could share it with any license holders that were not able to attend today, and we share it on our Facebook and Twitter as well. And I will also post it on the article so that people that come to look at this article can also see this video. Looks like we have one more comment. What if you complete SE today and applicable forms and fees? What will happen?
I'm going to assume that's CE.
I'm thinking CE, but Galen, or I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If you want to just ask your question, you're welcome to. I think that's CE.
Yeah.
Yes. I've had a problem with financials, and I just got all my money together to put in my application, and I just finished my last SE course, and I had submitted some completion forms earlier, and they had sent me back stuff saying that they'd answer my questions in 5 days. And of course they're backed up because of all the corona, and I haven't heard anything. So am I still gonna be in expired status the 31st if I get that in today? How's that gonna work for me?
Now, is this CE or SAE?
This is my first renewal. Yes, ma'am.
Your first renewal. Get that to us. We are working diligently to process all of the SAE course certificates that we've received. Because of, you mentioned coronavirus, we have 4 additional months worth of license holders that are expiring at the end of this month. And so our focus right now is on processing those to try our hardest to get them all completed and the course information entered and renewals approved for the first-time sales agents prior to the 31st. So we do generally for, at any other time of the year, we do honor a postmark for those license holders who wish to mail in their renewal information. So you may not technically be cut off on the 31st, but if you mail that to us, make sure that you've included your license number, or TREC ID, just so that we can make sure we've got the right Miss Garrison, certificates that we're processing. That'll help us process and send it to documents@trec.texas.gov, and you'll get in that line, and we are going to do our best to get those processed as soon as we can.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Have a good day.
Of course. Thank you.
So just Denise, your team and our agency is working to process 4 months of of expirations this month. So it's good to also, if we have any providers or association executives on this call, make sure you know we're very busy. And by we, I mean Denise and her wonderful, amazing team, and our communications, our customer service team. They are incredible. They work very hard and are making sure everything's being taken care of as quickly and as effectively as possible. But there may be some, slight delays on different things right now. Or is that true, or are we still processing everything perfectly as you usually do?
Perfectly. Nothing's ever perfect, but I can tell you we are processing SAE certificates that we received as late as Monday. That's what we're processing as of today. So again, and that's for people who expire in July. So if you expire in August or September, your renewal's already open, you've submitted your SAC certificates, yours are going to sit for just a little bit so we can process everybody who expires on Friday.
Okay, and so I did just share in the chat, we have a processing times page on our website in case anyone's interested. That's a really helpful tool to see where Denise and her team are working the applications and data that we receive from all of our license holders, so you can see what date they are on. So if you sent in your application from a different date, that's a good place to look at.
Thank you for posting that. It'll be updated tomorrow.
Thank you. So, okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and be cognizant of everyone's time and thank all of the people that took their time out of their day to join us on this call. I really appreciate you all being here. I want to thank Denise Sample for her time today. I really appreciate you joining us today. I know you're a very busy lady.
Thank you. Thanks for putting this together, because I think it's a great opportunity to get those questions that we may not always get, and to find out what's really on everyone's mind and what they're questioning.
Yeah, and this is a new medium for us. We used to do these on Facebook Live, but this is kind of a new COVID-friendly way to see our license holders. And we had gotten some feedback from people saying, well, I don't have a Facebook account, so I can't see your Facebook Live. So this is a great way to kind of open it up to anyone that wants to join us to join our calls. So we try to do these about once a month. So please, by all means, sign up for communications from the agency. My email address is christine.anderson@trec.texas.gov. If you are having a hard time trying to figure out how to sign up for communications, I'd be more than happy to help you get that figured out. And we also, like I said, have a Facebook and Twitter page. You can reach out to there as well. Again, Denise, thank you so much for your time today. No problem. And we will be sharing this video in just a little bit. Thanks everyone for attending today. We hope everyone is safe and happy at home.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.